All right, here we are. My name is Gavin Walsh from walshfatherweight.com, and today I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Dan Ritchie. How are you, Dan?
I'm good, good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's brilliant to have you on board. I've been Facebook stalking you for a while and looking at your websites and just keeping an eye on what you're doing. And I wanted to get you on a call for a while and just have a chat to you about what you do because it's great and the amount of people you help is amazing. So for those who don't know, Dan, would you give yourself a little intro?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the president of the Functional Aging Institute, which we founded about 2 years ago, and I also run two fitness centers here in the Midwest United States. We've been doing that for a little over 8 years. We've trained over 2,000 clients, and I got my PhD here at Purdue University, a Big Ten research institution, and really been in the fitness industry now for over 15 years. And really, my passion is helping people over 50 live the fittest and healthiest lives they can, all the way up until their final day, whether that's in their 80s, 90s, or even up to 100.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, one of the reasons I got you on the call is because in the UK, especially for people over 50, there's not much going on. It's pretty much terrible. You get people that go swimming, and you do see the odd person in the gym, but most of them aren't catered for well. They just get signed up as a member, and then they just get thrown in, and after the first couple of weeks, they end up wandering around, sort of staring into the void, doing some chest press on the machine and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wondered if it's any better in the States. And obviously, you're there trying to increase the awareness and trying to get people on board. But what is it like in the States compared to the UK?
Yeah, I would say it sounds a little better, not quite as bleak a picture as you paint, but by and large, that's very new, really, in the last few years. For the most part, I would say the fitness industry and recreational activities and just a lot of programming has really ignored people over the age of 65. And now, as the baby boom population is starting to turn 65, that's starting to change a little bit because they're saying, hey, we need more offerings, and I can't just do this baby fitness program for old people because I'm not old, and so we're kind of redefining aging in our country because now as people turn 65, they're not taking aging lying down, they're not taking it sitting on the porch. You're not going to set them aside essentially and treat them with kid gloves, and so we're starting to see more offerings. But by and large, it's still way underrepresented when you think how big this population is. The over 50 population is over 50% of our population here in the U.S. and by and large, the fitness industry is 10% or less catering to them. And so, at the Functional Aging Institute, we've been saying for a long time, hey, this is a huge population that needs fitness programs, fitness services, fitness opportunities, facilities, and nobody's doing it. In fact, most of the traditional fitness programs are still focused on people in their 20s and 30s, and that's not what people in their 60s want. They want something different, and so I think we're going to see that change, in the next 5 to 10 years as people realize that, one, there's a huge need, but two, there's a huge business opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, what do you see people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, or even 80s? What's their need? What do they want?
Yeah, I would say their biggest want really is just independence and vitality, and so that may be different for every person. And I always say that this is where the huge diversity comes in with this age range, right? You may have one 55-year-old who says, "I still want to be fit, lean, athletic looking. I want to look like I did when I was 35." You may have the next 55-year-old that doesn't care about any of that. They just want to be able to play golf without back pain, right? And so same thing, people in their 70s, you may have some that are just super go-getters. They plan to go to Antarctica and they want to scale mountains and do all this rugged stuff, right? And the next 70-year-old's like, I just want to take the grandkids to Disney World and enjoy it, and so there is a lot of diversity, but I think the commonality is this vitality, this sort of youthfulness in later life, that I can still have all the fun I want. I can still do all the things I want to do. I can still participate in all the things I enjoy, and I can do that essentially pain free, with really all the energy and vitality it takes to enjoy those things.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I want as well. You know, when I start getting a little bit older, and I want to be able to continue, as I'm sure you do as well. So that's one of the reasons that I stay active now. I'm not as active as I was in my early 20s. I've got a family and things, business, work, and we've got all those things in place as well. But I still want to be active, going into my 50s, 60s, 70s, and climbing mountains, as you say, doing all those fun things. But one of the things you mentioned there was injuries and doing things pain-free. When somebody comes to you, do you often see any issues that you have to work around?
Yeah, I mean, as people get over the age of 50, arthritis starts to set in somewhere. That's pretty common. So we just have to be a little smarter in terms of how we take care of our knees. I mean, the reality is a lot of people tend to become less active as they get older, and that's a choice. We just choose not to do all the weekend warrior stuff, and we drop some occasional recreational sports, but it does mean we just need to be smarter. And so being kind to our knees and our hips and our back, and training in a way that's not going to be beating us up, but actually building us up. And so, I usually tell people you should walk out of here feeling better than when you came in, not walking out of here feeling like you've just been beat up and, run through the rigmarole and, oh, it's going to take me 3 days to recover from that workout. No, we want you to leave and feel better and feel like you can go for a walk, go do some more movement, go play tennis, go play golf, go swimming, whatever it is you want to do. And so you just have to get smarter. And I think as people get even older, you have to just be more aware that, a 70-year-old's knees and hips don't have the same articular surface and cartilage lining that a 20-year-old's does. It's not the same. And so to think, well, we can train 7-year-olds just like 20-year-olds, well, there's some truth to that, and there's some not truth to that. I mean, we really have to be smart and aware that, hey, certain joints aren't going to take the same beating that they could take when you're 20. And so we just have to be smarter and wiser about how we train really intensely, with a lot of progressiveness to it, but also just being smart that we're not wearing somebody's knees out, or doing something that's going to wind up causing them pain for 3 or 4 days. If you have to take 3 or 4 days to recover from every workout, you're probably not going to stick with it for too long. You're just not. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Now over the last few years, because this leads on quite well, because some people they've seen in the newspapers, videos online, CrossFit's really taken off, and that's getting pretty big over here now as well. And everybody knows kind of that intensity is good, or at least it isn't good in terms of burning fat, getting those hormones working for you, and so you don't have to spend hours in a gym and those sorts of things. But at the same time, some people might be looking at that, so okay, I'm going to give that a go because it's good for me. Whereas I'm guessing people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, things like box jumps, jump squats, as you say, with the knees. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of CrossFit for people over the age of 50 by and large. If you have a good coach who's going to be modifying it, and reducing a lot of the high impact, then maybe. But by and large, a lot of the movements are just going to be too ballistic and too dynamic for your shoulders, for your hips, for your knees. I mean, a lot of jumping. I mean, CrossFit's a lot of plyometric type stuff, a lot of Olympic lifts. I mean, you got a lot of people over 50 that they don't have the shoulder mobility to do most of the Olympic lifts. So to act like you're going to try to teach them and coach them through that when they don't even have the range of motion in their shoulder to do it anymore safely, just probably isn't a great idea. And so we do a lot of similar things that they do in CrossFit, but we certainly don't do all of them, and we really pay attention to the ballistic and the high impact stuff, because that's really where a lot of people over 50, they just can't withstand that long term. And I'm looking at it as I have to design a fitness program that somebody can do for the next 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, they're going to be clients of ours for a long, long time. So it's a little bit different kind of thinking and methodology than just I'm going to give somebody a great 6-month program, because CrossFit can probably do that. But odds are most people over 50 are going to wind up with a higher injury rate than a young CrossFitter, and 3, 4, 5 years down the road, they're going to have shoulder issues, their knees are going to be bothering them, and it's not going to be it's not going to be the best solution. And I think sometimes, especially younger men and women in their early 50s think, oh, I want to hang with the 35-year-olds and try to be all I was back then. And I just don't think that's really smart for most of those people, because once you wear your knees out, they're worn out, and you don't want to have a knee replacement. Like, that's not a good option. Like, well, I'll run my knees into the ground until I have to have them replaced. Yeah. It's not a good strategy.
Just a quick question as well. I mean, do you still use kettlebells and weights and things like that with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. We use dumbbells, kettlebells, medicine balls, handled medicine balls, sandbags, all kinds of resistance bands and cable weights. We don't use barbells. We just haven't had good success with them, and we find the learning curve on those for a lot of older clients, it just isn't worth it. And it takes up a lot more space and equipment and all that sort of stuff too. And what we find is it tends to be intimidating to a lot of women over 50. And so we just assume remove that barrier and say, hey, we're going to be a low intimidating environment for women to step into in their 50s and 60s. We're going to do intense strength training, but we're going to do it with equipment that doesn't feel so overwhelming or scary to them. And so other than barbells, we pretty much use everything. We even have some box jump material. We got a bunch of different step heights and platforms and all kinds of stuff that we use. So
awesome. And I'm glad you said about intensity there, because intensity is relative. My intensity could be very, very different than your intensity, and so people know they've got to train intense, but they don't have to kill themselves. So I'm guessing, do you use a scale, or how do you work intensity into it, or you just monitor your clients and progress them as and when needed?
Yeah, we probably do both. We kind of give people the modified RPE scale of 1 to 10, and we tell most people we want your intensity level in a 7 or an 8 most of the time. We don't want you at a 9 most of the time, because we know you're not going to be able to do that for very long. But every once in a while, people might say, man, this is really intense, and we'll ask, are you at a 9 or a 10? Because we're only going to do this for 30 seconds, right? Yeah. And we want people to learn that, like 9 or 10 is something you can do for 30 seconds or less. So we want you training at a 7 or an 8 most of the time. And so, if those dumbbells aren't heavy enough that they're pushing you to 7 or 8, it's time to move up in dumbbells. If 12 reps was easy, then it's time we raise the weight, or we're going to do 15 reps, or we're going to do something for time. And so we're always trying to teach. We got to keep the intensity level high, and we got to keep pushing that. So just because you have this sense of accomplishment, like, hey, I'm doing more than last week, well, that's great, but guess what? 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing even more. So we're always moving forward. And it is relative. It's very relative. We're going to have one 55-year-old who's not as fit as the next 70-year-old. And then we might have a 72-year-old who's really frail and moving slow, and so the intensity can be very relative, and as trainers we have to be cognizant of that, right? Like I got a 72-year-old that's just had a stroke or a hip replacement. Well, a 20-minute workout might be just absolutely exhausting intense for them, right? And it might be half the work of their counterpart, so intensity is very relative person by person, and you have much more diversity in people over the age of 50 than you do in 20 and 30-year-olds. Even a 33-year-old who's 10 years out of shape, they can probably still work pretty hard. Well, a 60-year-old who's 40 years out of shape, 3 minutes of something intense, and they may be done, right?
Yeah, I've had some 20-year-olds who don't last long at all. So
right.
So yeah, as you say, relative. Now with your sessions and the way you structure them, obviously you said you use dumbbells, kettlebells, probably body weight training as well.
Yep.
What type of movements do you do? Because you're all about function and allowing people to move better, and obviously when you get into 50s, 60s, 70s, that's what you want to do, and be able to carry that on. So what is it that you do?
Yeah, so in a simplistic way to describe that, we just tell people we do every kind of human movement that people have to do. So just start listing off all the things you have to do: bending, reaching down, picking something up from the floor, twisting, turning, stooping, stepping, climbing. You just start listing every human movement you can. We want to try to hit all of those, right? So we're going to get down on the floor, and we're going to get in the push-up position. We're going to do some scrambling on the floor. We're going to do stuff with your hands on the wall. we try to do as much as possible in a normal body position. So for the most part, we do a lot of things standing, and then we do a lot of things down on the floor, either in all fours or either on hands and knees or on hands and toes. So push-up position, bear crawl position, quadruped position. I mean, we try to put people in real life situations, and one of our fundamental principles is, when in doubt, train standing. So if I can do an exercise standing, I don't care what it is, shoulder press, an arm curl, a chest press. If I can find a way to do it standing, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do it seated. I'm not going to do it lying on a piece of equipment. I'm not going to do it on a bench. I'm going to do it standing, because as we get older, that's really the key to functional improvement, quality of life, independence. It's the ability to be strong on my feet. Once I lose that, it doesn't really matter how strong I am. If I'm not strong on my feet, I'm really limited in terms of what I can do, right? Getting in and out of a car gets hard, climbing stairs becomes impossible, and so we want to do all those kinds of movements. So and obviously we want to do it in all kinds of different directions. So we don't just do it forward, we do it sideways, we do it diagonally, we do it backwards, and so there really is just a myriad of different movements in all directions.
And that makes total sense, because there's not much need for someone to lift 200 pounds lying on their back.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, that's what I tell people, when some people say, well, you don't have bench presses, and I say, well, I mean, let's be honest. First of all, I'm not a big fan of the bench press, but how many 65-year-old women need to be able to bench press their body weight? Like, when are they ever going to do that? They need to be able to do something on their feet that demonstrates strength, which may be picking up 40 pounds off the floor. Totally different than barbell bench pressing, which for the most part has no application for a woman over 50, right? Which our primary client is women over 50. But even men over 50, when do they ever need that kind of movement? When are they going to be laying on their back having to push something straight up? I mean, it's just not very functional. They need to be able to do strong movements on their feet, picking stuff up, putting something on a shelf, putting something from a shelf down to the floor. So they need to be able to maybe open or pull a heavy door, move a wheelbarrow. I mean, those kinds of things, which are very human movement oriented. They're not seated, controlled, and so that's where I think a lot of the machine equipment just doesn't serve people well, because when do you ever get to sit down in a controlled environment and push or pull something? I mean, it's just not how life happens, right? I mean, we've got to pick stuff up, move stuff, that kind of thing.
And when you're on the machines, there's no core muscle action going on there.
Right.
Right. For standing up, right?
Right. Yeah, there's no core activation, there's no balance control, there's no body control. And so you can train somebody to get really strong on a leg press or a chest press, and that may have some use, but if you don't train them how to translate that to their feet, it may never be very useful to them, because now all of a sudden, well, if I'm really strong on a chest press on a machine, but now I don't know how to control that through my back and my core, if I exert that force on my feet, I'm not going to be able to do it, because I'm not going to have the balance and the body control to do it. And so we almost, disserve our clients by giving them that strength in a non-functional way, because they can't use it in real life.
And I think there's some trainers and coaches that maybe they rush their clients onto more advanced exercises. Even guys that are in the 20s, 30s, 40s. I have somebody who can't do 10 press-ups. Why am I going to put them on the bench press? So making sure they can do the easier version of an exercise and progress it on. And I imagine you have those progressions in place for those people as well.
Yeah. I think that's a common mistake people make in the fitness industry is, we got to get to the next advanced level of exercise. And you might not need to, and it certainly could be inappropriate to even try to. People have to be able to do the basic movements well first, and they've got to be ready for that next level. And if they're not, they need to stay there until they are. And there's not, I don't look at things as a hierarchy, like this exercise is better than that one. So I mean, we have some female clients, they're going to always do push-ups on the wall. They're not ever going to progress to doing push-ups on the floor. They're just not. They're too overweight. They've got too many issues to even get down on the floor. But that doesn't mean that's a useless exercise or a bad exercise. It means that's where they're going to be at their level. And so we do have to realize sometimes some people aren't going to progress to that higher level exercise, and that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. Now you mentioned a moment ago sort of benchmarks, and do you have any benchmarks for your clients, male, female, or what level they should be at, or what they should be able to achieve?
Yeah, we
Or
don't
you,
have any. We really don't have anything specific. I mean, obviously, some of the basic benchmarks we look at with people is their body weight and the percent body fat, trying to get that into a healthier range. But interestingly enough, a lot of people over 60, weight loss is not their first goal. In fact, it might be their third or fourth goal. A lot of times, it's an also. It's sort of like, well, if I also lost some weight, that would be great. But their first three goals are they want to be able to get up and down from the floor with the grandkids. So our benchmarks might be, how many times can you get up and down from the floor in a minute? How many squats can you do? How many chair stands can you do? So our benchmarks are more functional type measures based on their goals, right? So they came in and said, I just want to be able to get down on the floor to play with my grandkids. So our benchmarks are going to be based around that, like how many push-ups or, mountain climbers or things you can do down on the floor that are functional movements. How many get-ups can you do, in a minute? Those kinds of things. For some clients, we don't have those specific fitness benchmarks. Their goals are, I just want to feel better, which is a hard thing to quantify, right? Like, how do I benchmark that? So a lot of that's just based on kind of 3 to 6 month reviews of, how you feeling? How's this going for you? Are you feeling better? You said you had knee pain every day. How's that? And so just kind of documenting those things.
yeah, that's good. One of the other things I wanted to ask you is, for example, say we've got Jim who is in his 50s. He's not done anything for a long, long time. What would you suggest to him? He's just coming into gym or even training at home.
If he's really new, and this is something that we're conscious of here, is that there are some people in their 50s who, when they say they're new to exercise, they mean it's been like since high school, right? Like it's been, 30 years since they've really done much of anything other than, maybe go out and, do an occasional recreational game. And so we're going to really start simple. And typically that means about 15 minutes worth of movement, a lot of breaks. We're going to see, can this person squat? Can they hinge at the hip? What does it look like for them to pick something up from the floor? Really basic foundational movements. What kind of shoulder range of motion do they have? So I want to see, can they get their arms above their head? Because I'm not going to ask them to start pressing if their shoulder range of motion is really bad. So we start simple and work up from there. And I usually tell people, hey, the first 2 or 3 sessions, we're going to try to take it easy with you. You may be sore simply because your body isn't used to moving, but that's not our goal. Our goal really is to kind of teach them some basic, lunge, squat, movement variations, stepping up, reaching down. We want to see how they reach down to the floor. Can they even get down on the floor and get back up comfortably? What's that like? So we start simple, and I usually tell people we're not going to get intense till about workout 5 or 6, because we kind of need to see what the reality is. We might get intense on workout 1 accidentally, right? Like it's like, well, I didn't think that was going to be intense, but it turned out it was. So, but I usually tell people we're not going to ramp it up till about workout 5 or 6, where we start to learn what it takes to get you to an intense workout and teach you that.
And it sounds a lot of what you do, all the functional work, getting them bending, twisting. But does any cardio come into your programs, whether it's the usual sort of intervals or just the slow go cardio? How does that fit in, if at all?
Yeah, it doesn't fit in much at all in our programs, honestly. Our programs are 30-minute training based, and it's functional strength. We're gonna include some high intense intervals in that strength where your heart rate's gonna definitely get up, but it's a very anaerobic type of training, sort of a sprint conditioning on off. So we're not doing typical traditional cardio. We provide that equipment, encourage people to use it. So at our facility, they've got access to treadmills and bikes and ellipticals and new steps and all of that thing to do their cardio work before or after their session. But we really want a 30-minute full body intense strength training session where we do get heart rate up and we do stress the cardiovascular system, but it's not your typical cardio type workout.
Sounds awesome. Now, I've got a couple more questions, and one of them is, I know you've got a big event coming up, so I'm interested to know more about that. Fill me in.
Yeah, so the Functional Health Summit kicks off April 14th. So we've got about an 8-day lineup of over 30 presenters, really from all different disciplines of health and medicine, nutrition. Interviewed a couple of OBGYNs talking about women's health and hormones, and the kind of the struggle that women have losing weight as they enter kind of premenopause, then menopause and postmenopause, and which is a huge issue for a lot of women 40 to 60. It's sort of like, gee, I turned 45 and I can't do anything except gain weight, right? And so and then we interviewed just a number of different experts on weight loss, a bunch of different chiropractors on some functional medicine things. We got autoimmune disease experts. The cool thing is all these people donate their time. They give these presentations for free. The entire event is free.
That's all online, isn't it?
It's all online, so it's really like an 8-day conference that happens online from the comfort of your own home. You can watch 4 presentations a day over the 8 days, and then if you want to own the whole thing and have all 33 presentations, in your library forever, you can buy the whole thing for a small fee, and it really is a small fee. I mean, if you wanted to attend a conference like this, it would cost $400 or $500 easy, maybe double that, and we priced the whole thing under $100. But the whole thing's free to attend, so there's really no reason people shouldn't take in at least the speakers' topics that interest them, right? So, if you've got autoimmune disease, there's 3 or 4 experts you definitely want to hear. If you've got hormonal issues facing menopause, we've got 3 or 4 speakers you definitely want to hear. So it's a really, really cool event, and it's the second time we've done it. We put it on last year, and last year we had about 30,000 people attend, and this year we're looking at having closer to 50,000 attend. So it's a really, really cool thing. It's totally free. It's all online, kind of at your own pace.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be watching. I'm always trying to learn things as well, and just listening to all these speakers is an amazing thing. Especially it's live at home.
Yep.
Get all that knowledge. You learn more than me probably. Yeah, it's fantastic. Now, something else that you've got as well for people who sort of want to take it to the next level and actually start training, because they might watch this video and think, oh, sounds great, I want some of that. So you've got a program, if I'm right, it's called Never Grow Old.
Yep. Yeah, our Never Grow Old fitness program. People can grab that from our site, functionalfitnesssolution.com. It's a program that Cody and I designed really with kind of our philosophy of how we train clients here in person. And we said, hey, how can we train people all around the world that say, hey, I'd love to train with you guys. There's nothing like this in my city, in my community, in my country. Because by and large, fitness pros just aren't focused on people over 50. So it's got
terrible.
Yeah, it's got over 12 different training sessions. Literally, Cody and I are taking you through the training session as if you were training with us. I demonstrate probably half the exercises, and then we've got Shauna Kaminsky, a female fitness gal in her 50s, demonstrating the other half. And it starts at a very simple level 1 that's just really designed for a 70-year-old who's been doing nothing their entire life, and goes all the way up to level 4, which is designed for someone in their 50s who's at a pretty good fitness level and they want a unique challenge. And so we've got all those levels in between, and they're simple 15 to 20-minute workouts, and most of them require very little equipment, and the equipment they do require you can pick up very easily.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you've helped thousands of people in your facility and online as well. So if you are in your 50s or 60s, 70s, then definitely encourage you to check it out. And I'll also put the links underneath this video somewhere for you to click on and have a look at Dan's stuff. And Dan, thanks for your time. Amazing to have you. Lots of nuggets of wisdom there. And I really appreciate your time. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, let me know.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Take care for now.